Hello friends, I'm Joe, and I have a chilling tale to share with you today. My story begins in an ordinary town, a place of quiet streets and peaceful nights, but as we all know, appearances can be deceiving. My interest in the paranormal was born out of curiosity, an insatiable desire to peek behind the veil of the ordinary, to understand the mysteries that lurk in the shadows. I've always been intrigued by the unexplainable, the strange, the eerie. And let me tell you, my friends, the story I'm about to share is all of that and more. It's a tale that's frozen my blood and sent shivers down my spine more times than I can count. A tale that's haunted my dreams and made me question everything I thought I knew about the world. So brace yourselves, my friends, for we're about to journey into the unknown. It all began on a cold, dreary night in the heart of winter. The world outside was asleep, blanketed under a thick white layer of snow. The wind whistled a lonesome tune and the moon hung low, casting long and eerie shadows. I, Joe, was nestled comfortably in my home, the warmth of the fireplace contrasting the frosty world outside. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the house creaked under the strain of the biting cold. An unsettling feeling of being watched slowly crept over me, but I dismissed it as just the winter chill. Then there was the first instance, a subtle hint of the haunting that was about to unfold. The sound of soft whispers filled the silence of the night, voices too faint to decipher. I peered into the darkness, seeking the source of the sounds, but found none. The whispers seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere all at once. A sudden chill ran down my spine as the temperature seemed to drop inexplicably, despite the roaring fire. The warm, cozy room was now tinged with an icy cold that seemed to seep from the very walls of the house. The fire flickered and waned, casting an ominous glow around the room. The whispers grew louder, morphing into a cacophony of hushed voices, their words still unintelligible, yet filled with an urgent sense of dread. The air around me seemed to thicken, the pressure building as if some unseen force was closing in, and then, the silence. A deafening, chilling silence that seemed to swallow every other sound. The whispers were gone, the creaking of the house ceased, even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. The only sound that remained was the pounding of my own heart, echoing in the oppressive quiet. I sat there, frozen in the eerie stillness, a sense of foreboding weighing heavily on me. The world outside my window seemed a million miles away, and I was alone, trapped in a house that suddenly felt unfamiliar and menacing. Little did I know this was just the beginning of a terrifying ordeal. As the days passed, the ghost made its presence increasingly known. The specter seemed to revel in its subtlety initially, its existence suggested by a mere flicker of a shadow or the faintest whisper of a chill. A shiver down my spine, a fleeting feeling of unease, a misplaced item, these were the only signs of its presence. It was as if it enjoyed playing this game of spectral hide-and-seek, teasing the edges of my sanity, but as the days turned into weeks, the ghost grew bolder. It was no longer content with just the subtle signs, it wanted to be seen, to be heard, to be felt. The first time I saw it, I was frozen in terror. It was a wispy figure, a mere outline, devoid of any facial features but brimming with an unnatural, chilling energy. The air around it seemed to grow colder and the lights dimmed, as if the energy in the room was being sucked into a void. The ghost began to make sounds too. It wasn't just the creaking of the old house anymore, or the rustling of the wind against the windows. It was a low, guttural moan that echoed through the empty rooms in the dead of night. The sound seemed to seep into the walls, into the very fabric of the house, sending a cold shudder down my spine. It was a sound that spoke of sorrow, of despair, of a loneliness so profound that it transcended the boundaries of life and death. Then came the cold spots. Areas in the house where the temperature seemed to drop inexplicably. It was an unnatural, bone-chilling cold that seemed to seep into my skin, into my bones, making me shiver uncontrollably. It felt as if the ghost was trying to reach out, trying to communicate its anguish, its torment through these cold spots. Each encounter, each manifestation was a chilling reminder of the fact that I was not alone in the house. The ghost had made its presence known. It was there in the shadows, in the cold spots, in the unnerving sounds. I was living in a nightmare and there was no waking up. The terror reached its peak one fateful night. The evening was as ordinary as any other, but what unfolded was far from normal. I was in my living room engrossed in a book when the lights began to flicker. A chill ran down my spine, all too familiar now. The temperature dropped drastically and I could see my breath fogging up in front of me. The flickering lights went out completely, plunging the room into an eerie darkness. Silence reigned, broken only by the pounding of my heart. Suddenly, a harsh, cold breeze swept across the room, making the pages of my book flutter wildly. I felt a presence, something unseen, sharing the room with me. The air was thick with an intense, suffocating dread. Then out of the chilling silence, a ghostly whisper, soft yet clear, it echoed around the room, filling the air with its spectral resonance. The voice was unfamiliar, but it addressed me by name. "Joe," it whispered, and I felt a cold hand brush against my cheek. Fear gripped me, a paralyzing terror that held me captive in my own home. I could do nothing but sit there, shivering, as the spectral voice continued to whisper my name. I was helpless, a mere spectator to the supernatural. I knew I couldn't live in fear forever. There comes a time in every haunting where you have to stand your ground, to confront the thing that's been casting shadows across your life. For me, that time had arrived. I made the decision to face the specter that had turned my home into a house of horrors. To prepare, I did my research. I read old books filled with forgotten lore, explored online forums of paranormal enthusiasts, and even consulted a local medium. The consensus was clear. I needed to confront the ghost directly, assert my presence, and demand it leaves my home. The night of the confrontation was a chilly one, the air thick with anticipation. I could feel the ghost's presence more strongly than ever. It was as if it knew what was coming. I made my way to the spot where the haunting had been most intense, the old creaky staircase. I stood there, heart pounding like a drum, and spoke into the darkness. "I know you're here," I said, my voice echoing through the silence. "This is my home. You are not welcome here. Leave!" The house seemed to hold its breath. Then in an instant, the atmosphere changed. The temperature dropped dramatically and I could see my own breath. A low growl echoed through the house, chilling me to the bone. Suddenly, the ghost appeared before me. It was a swirling mass of darkness, a shadowy figure that seemed to absorb all light. Its eyes, two piercing points of bright light, bore into mine. It didn't speak, but its message was clear. It was not happy. But then, almost as quickly as it had appeared, the ghost vanished. The temperature returned to normal, the growl faded away, and the house was silent. In its place was a feeling of peace, a sense of calm I hadn't felt in weeks. In that moment, I felt a strange mix of terror and relief. I had confronted my fear, stood up to the ghost, and in doing so, I had taken back my home from the haunting. And so, my haunting tale comes to an end. In the aftermath of my chilling confrontation with the ghost, life took on a new, eerie dimension. The once familiar corners of my home seemed to whisper secrets, carrying echoes of the phantom that once lurked there. The encounter left its spectral fingerprints on my existence, turning ordinary into extraordinary, mundane into mysterious. The ghost, the spectral intruder of my reality, may have departed, but it left behind a legacy of lessons. It taught me about the thin veil separating our world from the next, about the unseen realities that brush against our everyday lives. It made me understand that fear is not always a reaction to the unknown, but sometimes a response to what we refuse to acknowledge. The remnants of my spectral visitor lingered, a constant reminder of my brush with the otherworldly. And that, my friends, is the chilling tale of my encounter with the unknown. I hope my story has sent chills down your spine. This has been a glimpse into my own encounter with the supernatural, a journey that I'm grateful to have shared with you. If you've had your own experiences with the spectral world, I'd love to hear about them. For more tales from the crypt, do consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you for joining me on this eerie journey. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. Stay safe, and keep an eye out for the unknown. Good night, my friends.